Citroen supermini, the C3, is a mass of appealing contradictions. It's compact, yet practical and roomy. It's affordable, yet feels of high quality. It's refined on longer journeys, yet well suited to the town. Other small cars may be more engaging to drive, but you could well find this one to be more engaging to own. Now, Citroen knows a thing or two about small family cars, especially those with a dash or two of character. This, after all, was the marque that bought us the iconic 2CV over 60 years ago, a car that established its maker as an innovator and embracer of technology, and a brand in tune with the fickle finger of fashion. Over the years, we've seen further shining moments of innovation, design bravery, and unadulterated quirkiness, but never really amongst Citroen superminis. The 90s Citroen Saxo was a rebadged Peugeot 106, while its Citroen C3 successor was flimsy and forgettable. This second generation C3, though, is a really different proposition. It's not a modern day 2CV, but it's about as innovative as a modern 5-door supermini is ever going to get, and therefore a proper Citroen. This car's 5-door predecessor veered intentionally on the family frumpy conservative side in order not to steal sales space from its sportier, more youthful 3-door C2 stablemate. A misguided notion, as this Mark II C3 model now proves, with distinctive lines that are clean yet characterful, yet still leave room for Citroen's avant-garde 3-door DS model. Now, if you're looking for a smartly fashionable little supermini that's offering greater comfort and quality than a Ford Fiesta without the priciness of a Volkswagen Polo, then this French contender looks to be a car that you can't ignore. Small French cars used to ride beautifully, grip tenaciously, and flow from corner to corner with relaxed, unflustered motion, as this one does. Now, it may come as news to some motoring journalists, but the majority of supermini buyers don't want to throw their cars around as if they were on a stage from the RAC rally. What most of them would prefer is a car that rolls the red carpet over the average appallingly surfaced British B-road, as this one does. Now, the trick, which Citroen hasn't always mastered, is to offer all of this without inducing the kind of body roll and handling woolliness that removes any element of driving enjoyment from the experience altogether. In this respect, this impressively refined C3 is a world away from its predecessor. A Fiesta rolls less and is still more fun to drive, but this is the one that most buyers would probably rather live with on a day-to-day basis, though the seats could do with a bit more lateral support on longer journeys. The power steering too lacks a bit of feel on the open road, but it really comes into its own around town, where you also appreciate the light clutch and gearbox as much as the tight 10.2 metre turning circle that will help owners out of many a tight spot, as will the excellent visibility that you get all round thanks to the low window line. Now, on the engine front, the diesels, the HDI diesels, they're most appealing, particularly if you can stretch to the 110 brake horsepower variant that makes 60 from rest in 9.9 seconds on the way to 119 miles an hour. Now, if you can't justify the HDI diesel premium over petrol power, try if you can to ignore the entry-level 61 brake horsepower 1.1 and 75 brake horsepower 1.4 litre units. They're relatively old engines, and try instead to stretch up to the 95 or 120 brake horsepower 1.4 and 1.6 litre VTI engines that Citroen developed alongside BMW. Every modern car ought to have a unique selling point, but sadly so few of them do. This one's USP is clear from the moment that you look up when seated behind the wheel. A zenith extended windscreen that doesn't stop until it's well above your head. Citroen calls it Visio Drive, and this touch of glass is standard on all but entry-level Citroen C3s, extending the normal 28-degree field of vision up to 108 degrees. Now, practically what that means is that you don't have to crane your neck when, for example, you're first in the queue at the traffic lights. Subjectively, it does wonders in increasing the airy, spacious feel of this car's cabin. Now the extended glass area is progressively tinted so that the top of your head won't be, but if you really don't like it, you can bring the sun visor back down to where the top of the windscreen would normally be. This feature gives the car a welcome feeling of spaciousness that isn't borne out by the tape measure. In fact, at under 13 foot long, this is one of the shortest superminis out there, yet manages to offer impressive amounts of interior space. So at the back here, there's 30mm more knee room and leg room than the old C3 could offer, plus impressive headroom thanks to that domed roofline, all of which means that there's quite adequate space for either 2 adults or 3 children to sit very comfortably. Now behind them, rather astonishingly considering this car's tight exterior dimensions, resides the largest boot in the class at 300 litres, though it's a pity that the rear seats don't fold completely flat when you extend it. It's at the wheel that the French designer's efforts to improve the quality of this car are most obvious. Gone is the cheap tackiness of previous small Citroens, replaced by classy-looking analogue instruments, expensive-feeling plastics and flashes of chrome to liven things up. Everything flows together, nothing looks like an afterthought. So solid does it all feel, and so few are the kind of giveaway rattles that plagued this car's predecessor that it's actually something of a surprise to learn that it's actually 50 kilograms lighter here than the Mark I model. And better looking too, though it shares the old car's domed roofline, short, steeply rising bonnet and window line that's lower than the bonnet here. Now list pricing suggests that you'll be paying somewhere in the £11,000 to £16,500 bracket for your Citroen C3, with diesel starting at around £13,000. That's around about a £1,000 premium over the equivalent petrol models. Now that kind of pricing is about par for the course for superminis, though Citroen dealers are of course well renowned for their willingness to sharpen their pencils. Now, the C3 pricing will see you pay about £500 less model for model than you'd pay for, say, an equivalent Ford Fiesta. But it's about comparable with what you'd shell out for a Vauxhall Corsa, a Renault Clio or a Peugeot 207, though particular derivatives of those models might save you £500 here or there, depending on the model you're looking at. Nothing that your friendly Citroen dealer couldn't match, though. Now, the C3 range isn't unduly complicated. The lineup starts with a 1.1 litre 61 brake horsepower petrol engine, and there's also a 1.4 litre 75 brake horsepower unit. That's before you get to the much more modern and efficient VTI variable valve timing units, which put out either 95 brake horsepower in 1.4 litre form or 120 brake horsepower in 1.6 litre guise. That's the engine that I've been driving here. If you want a diesel, there's an entry-level 70 brake horsepower 1.4 litre HDI and a couple of 1.6 litre HDI units, offering you either 90 or 110 brake horsepower. Whatever your choice, your car will come with an MP3 compatible radio CD player with steering wheel mounted controls, electrically adjustable door mirrors, front electric windows and a multifunction onboard trip computer. Bear in mind though that entry-level versions do without the clever Visio Drive extended front screen and also miss out on air conditioning. It's also disappointing that only the plushest versions get ESP stability control, though of course if you tick the right boxes or specify the plushest models, you can of course have all of these things, together with lovely touches like a speed limiter, built-in air freshener, a high-tech stereo and satellite navigation. The work Citroen's designers undertook to keep this C3 model's weight in check can really be seen with the cost of ownership figures. It's possible to buy a specially developed version with CO2 emissions of just 99 grams per kilometre and combined fuel consumption of 74.3 miles per gallon. But even if you have to settle for one of the models in the standard range, then you should find this car pretty affordable to run. Now, the more modern engines are of course the more efficient ones. So the Mini Cooper engine 1.6 VTI petrol unit with 120 brake horsepower puts out pretty much the same fuel economy and emissions. That's 47.9 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 136 grams per kilometre of CO2. Pretty much the same as the entry-level 61 brake horsepower 1.1 litre petrol model. Even the rapid HDI 110 brake horsepower 1.6 litre diesel model manages 64.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and puts out 115 grams per kilometre of CO2. Insurance groups range between 2 and 5 for mainstream models, and service intervals are generous at every 20,000 miles. Residual values of the first generation model lagged behind those of its Fiesta and Corsa rivals, but this version should fare much better. Now, as superminis go, the C3 isn't an orthodox one. In time-honoured Citroen fashion, it's that little bit different, with smart, slightly quirky looks and that uniquely clever extended windscreen. Best of all, instead of adopting the little big car approach favoured by many rivals and ending up feeling like a scaled-down family hatchback, it achieves the same thing in a cleverer, more compact package by simply making better use of the space it has available. Citroen's MPV expertise doubtless helps here. What it lacks in driving dynamism, it makes up for in quality, refinement and a cosseting ride. Indeed, I can think of few sensibly sized small cars better suited to urban motoring than this one. Overall then, the C3 is at last a strong contender in the supermini marketplace. Best of all perhaps, it's a car that's distinctively Citroen.